It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, school bullies. We have a special report on the teachers forced out of the profession by their colleagues and paid off to go quietly. Sky News has been hearing from hundreds of teachers who faced relentless abuse but had to sign non-disclosure agreements to prevent them speaking out. Well, dozens more people have contacted us today following Sky correspondent Amelia Harper's report. She'll be joining me in the studio. Also tonight, we'll be in Swanage in Dorset, where 3 care home residents have died. Police say the deaths are being treated as unexplained, but a carbon monoxide leak is their main line of inquiry. We'll speak to our West of England correspondent, Dan Whitehead. Plus, the trial of former soldier Daniel Khalif is shown CCTV images of his alleged escape from prison. He was captured after a 4-day manhunt, with some of the footage today showing him reading newspaper stories about himself. And tributes tonight to Geoff, Britain's most famous shot putter and twice the world's strongest man. He has died at the age of 75. I'll speak to his Olympic teammate, Fatima Whitbread. All that to come, and much more on the UK Tonight. Sky News has learned that hundreds of teachers across the UK have signed non-disclosure agreements and been paid off after being bullied by their colleagues. More than 320 teachers have shared their experiences with us, but many are unable to speak publicly. The teachers who did speak to us have received payouts totalling more than £1.7 million, money taken out of school budgets to get them to go quietly. Just to warn you that this report from Sky's Amelia Harper contains references to abuse and suicide, which you may find distressing.
The worst bullying actually happens in the staff room between the teachers. It's not the children.
This is a place where children are kept safe. But those who care for them say they aren't protected at all. In schools across the UK, teachers say they experience what they try so hard to prevent: bullying.
I still get nightmares about what's happened and what's been said. I wake up in the middle of the night in sweats.
Maya, whose identity we're protecting, has been a teacher for 12 years. After daily bullying, the experience left her with PTSD.
Some of the bullying I've experienced is racism. So I've been called the N-word quite loosely. One day I'd been off sick and I'd gone to the doctors, and a colleague, he basically walked past me and was like, the is in today. Then I'd be sitting in amongst the teachers, particularly the younger teachers, and they'd be saying comments like ding, 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 as if it was Indian jingle music and things like that. And then I've had the curry lover comment as well.
And it wasn't just racism. She also faced sexism.
Someone said that I had blowjob lips. It was a senior member of staff, and then also that I'd have to bend over to get a promotion. I was crying every night to my mum on the phone. I was just in tears every night.
And Maya's story is not unique. We've spoken to over 320 teachers who've all come forward alleging they've been bullied in their schools, some over multiple schools. Many, speaking out for the first time, describe a culture inflicting irreparable damage. Maya was paid tens of thousands of pounds by the school after her experience. We aren't disclosing the amount to protect her identity. And part of the deal, the signing of a non-disclosure agreement. The bullying forbidden from being spoken about outside the classroom doors. And NDAs are used frequently among the teachers we've spoken to. 119 people say they signed one, and we calculate this would cost over £1.7 million in payouts. Taxpayers' money going into schools, instead used to pay teachers to leave. Many who signed one went to their union for help. Their stories familiar.
It does match our experience that schools are becoming perhaps far more authoritarian places to work. In a growing number, there is a significant power imbalance between management and teaching staff. I think part of that is down to the growth of multi-academy trusts, and we're looking at a far more corporate system. but perhaps without the safeguards and professional respect that a lot of corporate environments would provide.
And without those safeguards, it's raising questions about whether NDAs are being used appropriately.
The problem with having NDAs is it is covering up or not allowing anyone to explore whether it was appropriate for the individual and appropriate use of public money for them to be paid to exit a school. So in that sense, no, they're not appropriate.
And once signed on the dotted line, the bullying has, on paper, been dealt with. But mentally, the impact remains. Of the teachers spoken to in this investigation, over a third have had serious, credible thoughts or plans to harm themselves. A way to escape their treatment in schools, but not harming themselves enough to end their lives. Over 200 teachers gave written testimony that we could share. Much of what we've been told, though, is too upsetting to broadcast.
The bullying made me feel like the constant suicidal thoughts were normal.
The school leadership was a reign of terror.
I was literally broken. I was shaking, sweating.
Their behaviours had left me a crumbling wreck.
I would debate leaving my class and ending everything.
And it's a familiar feeling for Tracy, again, not her real name. A teacher of 25 years, she says she was targeted for questioning the new leadership when her school became an academy.
As a senior leader in school, I kind of had become aware of strategies and tactics that were being used with other members of staff, and I was starting to join the dots.
She says she was then threatened with unattainable performance targets before being given days to decide whether to stay or go.
I was manipulated very, very cleverly with the threat of something that is called a support plan, which is not a support plan. It's a tool that is used quite commonly in schools to put somebody just ahead of being put through capability processes. And it's code for you don't fit, we want you out.
What did the bullying do to you?
The conversations that sat around it did leave me at the very lowest, darkest place that I could possibly be. I was suicidal. I was suicidal with a child at home.
And whilst feeling this way, Tracy also signed an NDA. It was her way out, her way to protect her mental health. But the impact these documents are having is clear.
I signed away all my legal rights to challenge at any given point in the future when I might have been well enough to follow up. It was devastating.
And for Maya, these three words came to mind.
Worthless, sad, and suicidal.
That bad.
That bad. Being made to be silenced and things over what I've been through. I think I've no words, really. I felt like I had no voice.
Responding to the findings of this investigation, Education Minister Catherine McKinnell says staff should feel safe and supported at work and feel confident to report concerns, and the government expects school leaders to take appropriate action. She says their Education Staff Wellbeing Charter invites schools to commit to staff wellbeing. But for the teachers, the impact of the bullying has been profound. Only now finding the courage to speak out. Their stories coming to light after years working under the shadow of bullying. Amelia Harper, Sky News.
Well, Amelia joins me now. And Amelia, when you put together that special report after your investigation, you'd spoken to over 300 teachers. We've had more responses in today. What are we looking at here, scale-wise?
Yeah, this is growing, I think, actually slightly larger than I anticipated initially. I knew this was a big thing, but we've had, responding to the investigation today, another 130 teachers reaching out to Sky and to me about bullying that they have experienced. And I think what that really symbolises is just how widespread of a problem this really is. And I think the fact is that these teachers feel that they have nowhere else to turn. They're at the end of the road. They are fed up and utterly broken, many of them, by this. And as part of this investigation, I went back to all of these teachers that I've spoken to and said, is there a quote or some written testimony that you would be happy to put on the record that we will keep anonymous? And we had over 200 teachers that gave us written testimony. Some of it is absolutely heartbreaking. One person said, and this is just a snapshot of it, you know, I would debate leaving my class and ending everything. Nothing in my life felt worthwhile. Another, I used to spend my evenings sitting shaking. I couldn't believe what was happening to me. Humiliated, belittled, ridiculed. Someone said they had a panic attack so severe they had an ambulance called that they thought it was a heart attack. Another teacher said they tried to take their own life because they didn't believe in their abilities to teach anymore. So it is happening, but it is impacting these teachers so badly that they are at this position where so many are saying, I'm throwing in the towel, I can't do this anymore.
And that is not what the teaching profession needs right now. We know that. Amelia, this is right across the UK. You've had teachers getting in touch with you from all over the country. What is causing this? You touched on this in your investigation. They're talking about how school structures are changing, modernising, adapting. Safeguarding for children might be there, but the safeguarding for teachers doesn't seem to be adapting as well.
That's exactly correct. I think there were a few different elements. I think the biggest dynamic that became obvious to me when I started looking into this is a power dynamic and a power imbalance between those who have more senior positions in schools and those who don't. So that could be between head teachers and the general teaching staff, but also there are some head teachers that are getting it from those above them. And that leads me on to the next kind of topic, if you like, which is the growth of multi-academy trusts. And the way that these are structured, these are part of a chain, a large group of schools. They're run kind of like companies, if you like, not-for-profit.
Like big business.
Exactly. They're run as not-for-profit companies with CEOs and a board. That is how they're structured. And then the head teachers are often feeling pressure from them, which that then can feed back down into the staff. And this is something that the National Education Union reflected as well, that the growth of multi-academy trusts is repeatedly coming up as a problem because there are not the safeguards that a corporate environment would provide. And that is the way that these structures are going in terms of it becoming a much more corporate environment for these teachers, but they don't have the right structures in place to report concerns or whistleblow if they need to.
OK. Amelia, thank you. Amelia Harper there with more on her investigation. Teachers getting in touch with her all the time. You can find out more on our website, skynews.com. Amelia, thank you. Well, if you've been affected by the issues we've been discussing, help is available from the Samaritans 24 hours a day. You can call 116 123 or email joe@samaritans.org. Now, police say 3 elderly residents found dead at a care home in Dorset this morning may have suffered carbon monoxide poisoning. The deaths are being treated as unexplained. Our West of England correspondent Dan Whitehead has this report.
It was just after 5 a.m. that emergency services were first called. 3 people found dead at this seaside care home that offers respite and dementia care.
I had lots of sirens, which is unusual for the area, and I could see residents being evacuated down past the island just there, in wheelchairs, quite a lot of them. So I went over to go and see if I could help in any way.
The incident triggered a multi-agency response, including 10 ambulances and investigators from the emergency gas network SGN.
Following earlier inquiries, I can confirm that potential carbon monoxide poisoning is our primary line of inquiry. But I would stress that there is nothing to indicate that there is currently any risk to the wider public.
7 others from the home were also taken to 2 nearby hospitals. There is still a significant police presence here outside the care home, and we understand that this cordon is going to remain in place for some time as emergency services work to try and figure out exactly what happened here overnight. Around 40 residents were evacuated to a nearby church. Authorities spent most of the day trying to find space for them at other homes and settings.
We've just been trying to do the practical stuff of moving things around to fit them in and providing tea, coffee, all that kind of stuff, blankets. And members of the public have turned up with blankets, so I think somebody put a Facebook post out quite early on and just manage people from kind of mobbing the place.
The company that runs the Gainsborough care home says it appreciates this is a stressful and worrying time. It is a tragic incident that's left some of our most vulnerable people unable to return to their home. Dan Whitehead, Sky News in Swanage, Dorset.
Well, Dan is in Swanage for us tonight. And Dan, this is just tragic, and it will have affected not just those that work at the home and the families whose loved ones live there, but the entire community. Give us a sense of how people are feeling there this evening.
Yeah, I mean, there is that sense of shock. Just a couple of seconds before I came on air, SJ, one of the care workers from the home came up with a bunch of flowers and passed it to one of the police officers. You can see the care home behind me remains under a cordon. And also about 10 minutes ago, some of the forensic officers left the scene here for tonight. That investigation work continues into tonight and into tomorrow as well. In terms of here at the moment at the care home, all of the windows, it's quite a large care home, all of the windows are open. There's 48 rooms in here, and we understand there were around 40 residents, so nearly really at capacity when this incident, this suspected carbon monoxide poisoning took place overnight. So on one hand, a very much live ongoing investigation, a multi-agency response. There have been investigators, emergency investigators from the gas network here trying to understand just how this happened. But the impact on the community has been severe. We hear about the phrase close-knit community when tragedies unfold. You've been able to see it and you've been able to feel it here today. People bringing blankets down to the church, making cups of tea for the loved ones who've essentially had to find space for these residents. Really a community that has rallied round to look after some of their most vulnerable.
Dan, thank you. Dan Whitehead with the latest there from Swanage. Some sad news this evening. Geoff Capes, Britain's most famous shot putter and twice the world's strongest man, has died at the age of 75. Geoff Capes competed for Great Britain at 3 Olympic Games, finishing 5th in Moscow in 1980, and he won the Commonwealth Games twice. Capes became a household name after retiring from track and field, appearing on the Superstars TV programme, as well as World's Strongest Man. As somebody put it on social media earlier, he was a true sporting hero of Saturday tea times. Well, I'm joined now by two-time Olympic medalist Fatima Whitbread. He was Geoff Capes' teammate at the 1980 Olympics and knew Geoff well. First of all, condolences. As someone who knew the man himself, so many of us growing up in the 80s following sports felt like we knew Geoff Capes because he was always on our TV competing. But you knew him. How are you remembering him this evening?
Well, Geoff was a giant of a man. He had a big heart. He was what I call a big teddy bear. He was as soft as you like. He's a great inspiration to me in my early days and acted more like a brother than anything else. And he helped me tremendously coming through in my international career, as he has inspired many young people and will do for generations to come. He was an amazing athlete, but an even amazing more as a person, because he had a big heart. He always had time for everybody. He was kind soul. He was also a terrific athlete, as you know. Everybody admired his ability, especially, a giant of a man as he was with the shot put. He also won twice World's Strongest Man and 6 times the Highland Games. He was a very big favourite with the royal family as well. I know that for a fact. And, he will long live in the memories of many people. And it is a sad day, but I want to celebrate Geoff's life because he was such a wonderful person. And my condolences go out to his family and his very close friends as well.
Yeah. And when I heard of his passing in the newsroom a little earlier, my first image of Geoff Capes was him carrying hay bales. And of course, he had that incredible international athletic career, but he had a second career, didn't he, as a strongman. And it's fascinating because I always remember people being really interested in his training regime in the 80s because it was the day when you can go into athletes' houses with TV cameras and you look at him and his training regime saying, he ate the equivalent of 4 times a normal person's food a day. He could lift the equivalent of 18 double-decker buses in a week's training. People were absolutely fascinated by that training regime because it was so unusual to be the world's strongest man.
He was a great character as well. I mean, a lot of people don't know this, but he actually beat Brendan Foster over a 60-metre dash. He was no slow coach, you know. He was very fit, fast, powerful guy, and it was tribute to him that he won World's Strongest Man twice. He was three-time Olympian, and it was Britain's best shot putter, and everybody in the world of athletics knew who Geoff Capes was. I mean.
Yeah.
Was somebody that made an impact on you instantly. He was also, for a big guy, he was very much into budgerigars. He used to show he had lots of budgerigars. He liked birds, both the birds and the feather type as well. No, and he wouldn't mind me saying that. But Geoff and I,
I'm sure he'd laugh at you saying that.
He'd laugh
I think
at that.
you'd be okay. Yeah.
Would. And anybody that knows Geoff would know that. But, you know, he was just a one of a kind. You'll never find a Geoff Capes again. I love Geoff to bits, and he will be sadly missed. Yeah.
Oh, well, Fatima, you're speaking so well of him tonight, and it's worth reminding those who didn't grow up in the era of Geoff Capes, who might only be hearing for him on the first time, to head to the internet, to head to YouTube.
Now go to the internet, go Google.
Yeah,
see how Geoff Capes. I mean, very rarely do you get a character of Geoff's stature that can come and make an impression in several different areas. It's not just in the world of athletics, but the Highland Games, tossing the caber, and also World's Strongest. I mean, he was an absolute beast of a man, but when you got to know Geoff, he was a soft, kind-hearted gentleman, you know, and once you met Geoff, you knew just exactly. He was a cuddly bear. He was a big teddy bear.
A cuddly bear of a man who could just happen to pull two trucks with a couple of ropes. Yeah. I love that. OK, Fatima, wonderful of you to remember your former Olympic colleague and friend, Geoff Capes. Thank you so much for coming onto the programme tonight to pay tribute to him. Appreciate it.
God bless you, son.
Still to come on the programme after the break. We'll be getting an update on the sexual assault allegations against Mohammed Al-Fayed. This is after Bianca Gascoigne added her voice to the fight for justice, speaking to us yesterday. Plus, the Home Secretary announces new rules for firearms officers in the wake of the Chris Cabot murder trial. And why a new drug that slows the pace of Alzheimer's won't be made available on the National Health Service.
I'm James Matthews, and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C.
Do you fear a fourth indictment? Does your government owe an apology to the British home children?
Great to see you.
Does your government owe them an apology?
The fact that they were intercepted, does that indicate a military weakness on the part of Iran?
No.
Free, wherever you get your news. There's no doubting the strength of this hurricane as it roars through. You can feel a devastating power.
It had been a difficult night in a deadly storm.
Bang, bang. You can hear it hitting the windows.
Our houses are okay.
It's depressing.
As bad as all of this is, it could have been much worse. Today, this land they call sacred is at the heart of America's electric car revolution.
To me, it's a sacred ground.
The white gold rush is a race that Biden doesn't want to lose. I've covered some of the biggest stories in the world. Donald Trump, 45th President of the United States, it would appear is about to learn his fate.
Escort coming out!
San Quentin houses America's largest death row. They rarely allow cameras onto the condemned block.
James Matthews, Sky News. I want them to be treated equally like everyone else.
It's one step closer to getting out, to getting off death row.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Mr. Trump, James Matthews from Sky News.
Hey, James.
Are you diminished by claims that you're a racist?
Question?
Mr. Musk, has your ignorance and ego cost Ukrainian lives? Vladimir Putin calls you outstanding. What do you call him, sir?
He's from Sky News. He's from Sky News. He's entitled to ask me questions.
The most significant day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Tanks, heavy vehicle,
Why only in America? People want their country to work.
You want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
Yesterday, we brought you an exclusive interview with Bianca Gascoigne. Bianca, daughter of England footballer Paul Gascoigne, told me that she was groomed and sexually assaulted by Mohammed Al-Fayed when she worked at Harrods as a teenager. Well, for years, the shame and embarrassment of what she had been through prevented Bianca from speaking out. But after the first allegations against Al-Fayed emerged last month, she realised that she had to tell her story.
Becoming a mum, I just thought I need to speak out because I do not want my daughter to grow up in a world where women are silenced and feel that they don't have a voice when we do, and these things shouldn't be happening. And I just hope me coming out and speaking will give other women the voice as well, so that it doesn't make these predators think that they can get away with it.
Well, since we aired that interview, women who worked at Harrods at the same time as Bianca have contacted us here at Sky News to echo her account of the culture at the department store during Al-Fayed's time in charge. And new victims of the billionaire who died last year are coming forward every day. Let's speak to Bruce Drummond now. He is a barrister representing some of Al-Fayed's survivors. Bruce Drummond, good to see you again here on Sky News. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Sarah.
Perhaps you could just reflect the impact that Bianca's interview had yesterday, because Bianca Gascoigne has a public profile and a platform and has used it to add her voice to this.
I think that Bianca is incredibly brave to do that. Sadly, from my perspective, it just emulates so many stories that I've heard from so many poor, damaged ladies that have eventually found the strength to come forward and speak about their terrible ordeal that they suffered whilst they were in the employ at Harrods and whilst they were under the governance of Fayed. It's absolute. There is nothing nice about this case at all. There really isn't. No. And my hat goes off to all these incredibly brave ladies that have been able to come forward and speak.
Incredibly brave and feeling empowered and feeling solidarity that there are women coming forward, and there are more women coming forward all the time. They don't have to do it publicly, and that has to be stressed every time, because that puts added pressure on survivors. They can come forward anonymously.
They can come forward anonymously.
And they are, aren't they? How many more people? How many more women have you had come forward?
We've had, since the documentary, we had 37, I think, at the time of the documentary that were retained by us. Since that, we've now got 147 who are retained by us and who we're looking after. And we've got another 100 in the system, and we're getting calls every day. And we're absolutely committed to doing our very best to ensure that they get their accountability and that they get, proper recompense for what happened to them.
When you last spoke to us here on Sky News, you said something that stopped me in my tracks. You said this is worse than Jimmy Savile, and you also said that this is the worst case of corporate sexual assault you have ever seen, that there might ever have been.
Without a question. Without a question. This is different, and there's a distinction between this and those other cases and that. And I don't like to compare at all, nor do I like to say that, any one type of assault is any different to another. They're all bad, okay? But in this case, what you've got is a corporate establishment that was effectively established to set up Fayed with a series of young girls that he could abuse over a period of 25 years.
The scale of this
Sorry,
I was just going to say the scale of this is breathtaking. We may never know the scale of it. We've only got limited time together, and I just want to pick up on something that Bianca said to me yesterday. She said she's doing this for the other women. She's also doing it for future generations. Her daughter, my daughter,
absolutely.
Women's daughters, you know, everyone's daughters. She's doing it for them. And I just wonder what the ripple effect of this Fayed case is in terms of corporate sexual assault, because if we're realistic, this will be going on, maybe not on this scale, but this will be going on in 2024 in a place of work. There will be women in vulnerable positions not feeling like they can speak out. What do you hope the effect of this will be?
I sincerely hope that the effect of this will be to effect a major change in the way that companies and corporations look after their employees, and in particular, without sounding in any way sexist, their female employees who are brought in a most vulnerable position. And not only that, a number of the ladies that we represent have also said the same, that the reason they're coming forward is to also hopefully affect future generations, that they won't have to suffer what they've suffered. Now, ladies can come forward. There is nothing to be frightened of. There is no fear in this. There's no shame. There's no embarrassment. Nothing that happened to you was your fault. You were merely subjected to a vile monster working in an establishment that was established to enable him to abuse young women. It's
Bruce,
not your fault.
Yeah. Echoing that sentiment, thank you. And I think that is a really important note to end our time together on. Bruce Drummond, a lawyer representing a number of Mohammed Fayed survivors. Thank you for joining us, and we'll speak again soon. Well, let's just reflect what Harrods has said in response to the allegations against Mohammed Fayed, including Bianca's. They referred us to their previous statement on these allegations, saying they are utterly appalled by the claims and stressing that the organisation is a very different place than the company that Fayed controlled. Harrods goes on to say that more than 250 women are now part of its compensation process. Still to come. Could vaccines end the winter vomiting bug? We'll have details of the Norovirus jab that's being trialled here in the UK. And breaking news from mid-Wales as a dairy cow gives birth to extremely rare quadruplet calves. Details on the way. Met Police Commissioner has welcomed new rules for firearms officers who use their weapons while on duty. The Home Secretary announced today that the identity of officers will be kept secret if they're prosecuted, unless and until they are convicted. It follows the acquittal of police marksman Martin Blake, who had been accused of murdering Chris Cabba. Well, let's bring in Dal Babu, former Chief Superintendent and Gold Firearms Commander in the Metropolitan Police, for his view on this latest development. Dal Babu, good to see you as always. Let's talk about this. The Met Police Commissioner saying this is a welcome step forward. What's your view?
That's right, Sarah Jane. I think the first thing I would like to say, there's been 5 shootings since the Chris Cabba shooting. They've all been of white men, and they have individuals have not been identified. Police officers haven't been identified. And I think the thing to bear in mind is that the Chris Cabba case drew a lot of emotion, and people had entrenched position. On the one hand, people from the black community and the wider community, minority community, expressed concerns because there's this fundamental lack of trust in policing. And on the other hand, police officers who were marksmen, markswomen, they were very concerned about Martin Blake being named. So I think you had a dilemma here, 2 different issues. And I think what we've seen in the last day is the information that many of us were privy to right from the start around Chris Cabba's background has now been put into the public domain, and that has led to another debate. So I think the Commissioner has welcomed this review. The review is being carried out in part by ex-acting Commissioner Tim Godwin, who was a commissioner during Mark Duggan disorder around 2011. And Tim Godwin is hugely respected in the community and in the police. So I think it'll be a very, very positive sign to see how this review goes.
What made this slightly different is this was a murder charge. And on the other side of this argument is the fact that no ordinary member of the public that had that charge levelled at them would be afforded anonymity. It's all feeding into the justice process being open, fair and transparent.
Well, I think the murder charge was totally inappropriate. I didn't meet a single person in the criminal justice world who thought it was an appropriate charge and that would lead to a conviction. And I think the fact that the jury took 3 hours and were unanimous would give you an indication of what they thought of the evidence that was presented. I think there is some questions to be asked for the Independent Office of Police Conduct, their investigators, how they made their decision, how they came to that decision, because it just didn't seem the appropriate charge. Murder is malice aforethought with premeditation, and it would be very, very difficult to get to that bar. But your point there about anonymity and if you're an ordinary member of the public is well made. But we also need to understand that police officers who have firearms are also dealing with organised criminal networks, and we know that a £10,000 bounty has now been placed on the officer's head, Martin's head. So I think we need to understand and protect officers who carry out these very, very difficult duties. But at the same time, the police need to ensure that they build up their trust within the community. It's not just the black community. In the olden days, it was black and Asian people, LGBTQI, it'll be sort of young people. But these days, I went to a dinner party. I don't know, Sarah Jane, if I've told you this story before. I went to a dinner party, and these middle-aged, white, heterosexual women in their 60s who were saying that they didn't trust the police. So the level of trust that is diminished in the police is going through society. It's no longer limited to one demographic group.
Yeah, you haven't told me that before, but, we have discussed many times on this show, women don't trust the police for so many reasons, so many stories we've covered in depth here on Sky News and particularly on the UK Tonight. How do you start rebuilding this trust then? Because do you think that was a pressure on the justice system in naming that police officer to go above and beyond to show that they were completely transparent, because such was the sensitivity of this case, particularly amongst the black community and the overwhelming support? We saw, marches on the street in Chris Cabba's name. This was huge 2 years ago and has continued to be in the public arena for the last 2 years.
I think you're right. And I think that outpouring of concern from sections of the community may well have swayed and put pressure on the IOPC. It's very, very interesting that we've named the officer who's now got a £10,000 bounty on his head. But we don't know who the IOPC officers are who made this decision, who carried out the investigation. And actually, Chris Cabba's co-defendants, he was a suspect for a shooting. There's video footage that's been released of him in a nightclub where he was a gunman with and shot two rival gangmen. We have that footage. Anonymity was afforded to those individuals before they were sentenced. So it just seems bizarre kind of situation where you give anonymity to some people and not to other people, and the people that you don't give it to, i.e. the police officer, then has a bounty put on their head. So I think this review it's really, really important. And I think I've got a huge amount of respect for Tim Godwin. I think he's a person who will look at these issues fairly, firmly, and make sure that we deliver a more balanced and fair system that gives us confidence in the community, but also gives the police confidence that they'll be judged fairly.
OK. Dal, always good to talk. Dal Babu there, former Chief Superintendent with the Metropolitan Police. The drug spending watchdog has ruled that a new treatment that slows the pace of Alzheimer's is too expensive to be made available on the NHS. The drug was hailed as a turning point in the fight against the disease last year, but the National Institute of Health and Care Excellence says it provides only a small benefit to patients. Here's our science correspondent, Thomas Moore.
Retired journalist Peter Almond sometimes struggles to find the right word these days, but despite being diagnosed 4 years ago with mild cognitive impairment, a precursor to Alzheimer's disease, he remains mentally sharp, and that, he believes, is because he took the drug donanemab as part of a clinical trial.
I don't feel as though I'm sliding downhill, and which is what I had thought, which is the reason I went to my GP and had the scans in the first place. I'm still riding my bike, I'm still active, still doing things, I'm still writing, and so, yes, it seems to me to be doing quite well.
So some of your clinical trial stuff here, isn't it?
Yes.
But use of the drug on the NHS has now been blocked by the spending watchdog NICE. It found monthly injections slow progression of the disease by 4 to 7 months. But 1 in 3 people had signs on brain scans of swelling or bleeding. And at £25,000 a year, plus the cost of safety monitoring, NICE says it's just not worth the money.
It's unfortunate in many ways, really. Firstly, it means that those with money will be able to get it. So it's going to create, if you like, a two-tier healthcare system. But the second problem, really, I think, is the expense of monitoring the drug. And both of those things are influenced by the poor, I would say, poor state of our dementia services.
This is the second drug for Alzheimer's in as many months that has been blocked by NICE. 70,000 people will now be denied treatment, but some doctors say its benefits have been overplayed.
Dementia is really quite complicated. It's got lots of underlying causation and pathologies in which this single protein that the drug these particular drugs target is only one part. It's a shame that there's such hype, which gives such hope, but there are so many more considerations to take into account.
Alzheimer's charities said the decision by NICE was a frustrating setback for patients, but there are another 20 drugs now in late-stage clinical trials, and hopes are high that at least some of them will prove to be safer, more effective and more affordable for the NHS. Thomas Moore, Sky News.
Let's talk about a world-first vaccine for the winter vomiting bug Norovirus. It's going to be trialled here in the UK. The Health Secretary says he hopes that this jab will help cut the burden on the NHS, with a virus linked to 12,000 hospital admissions every year. Well, let's bring in now Dr. Nikki Kanani to talk about this jab. Really good to see you, Nikki.
Lovely to see you.
I hear about Norovirus. every winter
all the time.
season. Yeah. But I had no idea it was that bad in terms of people going into hospital. So that's clearly why there is now the feel that there's a need for a jab.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a reminder, norovirus is a diarrhoea and vomiting sickness, and there's quite a lot of bugs that go round all through the year, but as you said, particularly in the run-up to winter, people tend to get that really horrible sickness lasting 2 or 3 days. It usually affects older people, people who are feeling a bit poorly because they have other health conditions. But we can get about 4 million cases a year in this country alone. And out of that, 12,000 people get admitted into a hospital. And I remember when I used to work in a hospital, whole wards would have to be shut because the bug was going around. So
because
really,
it's easily transmissible.
It's very, very easy to catch and causes a huge amount of problems. And even if you don't go into hospital, you're at home feeling really poorly, you're spreading it around your friends and family, and whole sections of the community get really unwell.
Because there's no real treatment for norovirus. From what I can remember, because family members have had it, I personally haven't had it, it's to stay hydrated.
Stay hydrated, that's exactly it. And when you go into hospital, you're usually isolated and you're given intravenous, so IV fluids, to keep hydrated. But it can make people really unwell. And if you're particularly susceptible, you get very, very poorly in hospital, and sadly, some people die, about 80 cases a year. So an impact in terms of deaths, but even more so, a real impact in terms of people coming into hospital and, as I said, on families and loved ones, and especially in the lead up to Christmas.
So to take those 12,000 cases a year out of hospitals, what kind of difference would that make to the NHS, particularly going into those vital winter months?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're talking about not just bed space and bed space where you're not going to get infected by something that can make you very poorly, but maybe something that would release about £100 million back into the NHS over time. It's a huge impact on the whole health system and on people, whether they're in or out of hospital.
So talk to us about the jab. What do we know about it at the moment?
Well, I mean, this is quite interesting. It's really early days. It's from our government partnership with Moderna. So you'll remember Moderna from the vaccines that we rolled out. So Moderna produced one of the more new types of vaccines, the mRNA vaccine, so put together in a different way from other viruses, from other vaccines. So there's been a partnership, a 10-year deal for the government to work with Moderna in partnership to come up with other really great innovations that's going to help this country keep well, really. So still early days. They are recruiting to trials now, so about 27 sites across the UK, asking people to come forward if you're over the age of 60 to test the vaccine, much like we did with the COVID vaccine, to see how it works. So I think we're a few years away yet, but really promising nonetheless.
OK, Nikki, really good to talk to you.
Lovely to see you.
Kanani, talking to us there about the norovirus vaccine being trialled here in the UK, a world first. Thank you. Coming up on the programme, as England prepare for that crucial third test in Pakistan, will the pitch conditions prove perfect for the spinners? And an unheard of arrival in Wales as a dairy cow gives birth to extremely rare quadruplets.
We're rolling.
Welcome to the world.
Our new podcast, starting now. It's very exciting. Every week, we'll be reporting from the world's trouble spots.
We get to hold those in positions of power accountable, and we get to ask the questions that the audience, the listeners, want to know about.
And that's why it is so important that people tune in, come along for the road, come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
I'm Martha Kellner, and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles. Sky News, the full story first.
I'm Martin Brunt, and I'm Sky's crime correspondent.
I'm David Blevins, and I'm Sky's senior Ireland correspondent. I've spent 30 years reporting the journey from conflict to peace.
Free wherever you get your news. I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos, analysis, up at 6%. Podcasts, watching us live. Joins us live all in one place, and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club.
4 more years!
Free wherever you get your news. I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Play Sky News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7.
Now that you're up to date, we can go into a bit more detail.
Things can change incredibly quickly.
Taken by surprise.
Have you ever known a moment like this in British politics before? Yes. Cheers.
We'll start with breaking news.
Let's get the latest on the ground.
So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better.
Hello, welcome back. Coming up, we've got some breaking news for you out of Wales. I know,
Love it.
I know.
Yeah, well done.
A dairy farm has welcomed extremely rare quadruplet calves. So some very cute pictures coming up. But first, Teddy's here with the sport. And England's cricketers heading into that third and final crucial test against Pakistan tomorrow. Early in the morning, evenly poised and a lot of attention on the pitch. Look, there's Ben Stokes inspecting it.
There we can see it behind us. Yeah, Ben Stokes saying he thinks this has been raked. Some people say it could have been scoured with nails as well. This is the pitch in Rawalpindi for the deciding test match. It's one apiece currently. You may remember the second test match was an epic spin encounter because they used the same pitch in Multan as the first test, where England have been great with the bat. Very difficult to keep a bat. So now we've seen Rawalpindi trying to replicate those conditions because Sajid Khan and Noman Ali were so powerful for Pakistan with the spin bowling. They took 20 wickets, best haul for 50 years, the first time in 50 years plus that's happened. So it looks like Pakistan trying to recreate these conditions. This is one of the subplots as well of Test match cricket, isn't it? In England, it's nice and wet and green, and we have these wickets that seam and kind of move, whereas in the subcontinent, particularly Pakistan, like the spin bowling. So they're doing all their best with the heaters and the fans to make it look pretty like it's going to all the cracks. So it's going to be there for the spin bowlers to make it difficult for the England batters.
Yeah, Ben Stokes not looking at all impressed, is he, in that picture? He's going to go with 3 spinners, we understand.
He is.
What does that mean for the role of the England captain?
Well, for Ben Stokes, he's working his way back from injury, isn't he? So he's had hamstring problems, knee problems as well. So he's just getting his way back into bowling. He's been a batter to this point, but we've got Rian Ahmed, who's 20 years of age, Shoaib Bashir, spin bowlers, Jack Leach, Gus Atkinson and Ben Stokes himself will be the main speed bowlers, fast bowlers, so he may have to open the bowling. Rare occasion for him in his Test match career. Just hear from Stokes now on his plans and the pitch as well.
Who knows what's going to happen? It looks a very good wicket at the moment. With some cricket on it, it might change. But look, we've obviously taken a read off the wicket as much as we possibly can, and we feel the longer it goes, the more the spin's going to come into play.
Yeah, so Ben Stokes, full of optimism. Good to see that match, deciding match, 5:30 a.m. Sky Sports cricket, and it all gets underway at 6 a.m. our time. Up next, news of all the British sides in action in Europe tonight in football.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people more active. Live life with Vitality.
The first real footballing memory was Arsenal winning the double and my dad taking us to Highbury Corner to go and watch us do the parade. I can almost still feel myself like as a small child and my dad's hand being like in front of my eye and like just trying to hold on to my dad's hand so that we can walk through.
Yeah.
And it's so weird that it does that. Do you know what I mean? And it's an amazing thing. My first shirt was the Arsenal goalkeeping shirt in '98, and I had Alex Manninger on the back.
Why Alex Manninger?
I don't know. I was always a fan of like the rogue player. For some reason, I always used to wear that. Then it was a Overmars 11 shirt, JVC, yellow away.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
Well, we like to leave you with something weird or wonderful, if we can, here on the UK Tonight. And a dairy cow in Powys has given birth to extremely rare quadruplet calves. Now, the chance of a quadruplet pregnancy is said to be 1 in 700,000, with the chance of them all being born alive just 1 in 11 million. Well, despite those odds, the bull and 3 heifers arrived fit and healthy. And I'm pleased to say I'm joined now by the fertility manager at Calcourt Farms in Powys, Matthew Hicks. Matthew, first of all, congratulations on your safe arrivals, beating the odds. Talk to me what it was like during delivery, because I don't think you expected this, did you?
No, it was. We were in complete shock. You know, like I said to people before, we have twins quite often, but you know, no one comes to work here expecting to see no calves. There's always something calving, but for 4 out of 1 cow is unheard of, right?
So you're in the barn. Where are they? Are they behind you? I'm just trying to have a look, just trying to be nosy.
We're in the calving yard tonight. It's quite quiet. There's not much going on yet. They're all saving themselves. So yeah, it was in this shed that the cow calved, and these are all ready to pop imminently.
Yeah, all quite quiet at the moment. You've had enough drama, haven't you? Look, here's some pictures of them just after they came into the world. How are they doing?
Remarkable, really. You know, they have had a bit of extra TLC just for the size of them. I mean, they took a bit more extra feeding, but Lee and Jess, the main 2 calf rearers, have just been on it. And yeah, I've done very little, to be honest.
You're not milking it. Sorry, my director's just given me that joke. We've been thinking of all the brilliant cow puns to celebrate this. And how's Mum doing as well? Because this was artificial insemination, right? As fertility manager, this was all carefully managed. How's Mum doing after giving birth to quadruplets?
Yeah, she's doing really well. You know, it was touch and go. Well, we thought it was going to be touch and go for the first sort of 2 or 3 days to a week, but yeah, she's hit the ground running, and she's just over the wall there.
Any idea on names?
Well, Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Moo, sisters called them, but yeah, I just call them 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, where's your imagination? I like Eeny, Meeny, Miny and Moo. Let's leave it at that. Oh, well, Matthew, congratulations to you. I think you should go and buy a lottery ticket now.
Yeah, well, I did do that, but I'm, as you can see, still working, so that didn't quite pay off.
Better luck next time, better luck next time. Probably got better odds than getting more quadruplets. Matthew, thank you very much. That's all from the UK tonight. We will see you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Next up, it's The World here on Sky News. We'll see you tomorrow.